Hello there, and welcome back to Writing from Scratch with me, Tom. On today's episode, I want to talk about the perfect chapter length for your book and how you can decide how long your chapters should be. So, something that really bothered me as I started writing my book was not being sure how long my chapters should be. I got into this really negative cycle of being very self-conscious about my chapters being too short or being too long. And today I want to share some advice on different chapter lengths and how there isn't really a perfect chapter length, and that each chapter, whether it's short or super long, has different abilities and different functions that you can use without your story, and that really the best thing to do here is to mix and match different lengths of chapters in order to create different effects within your novel. So today let's explore a few different chapter lengths that you can utilize for your book and the various effects that they have on the story that you're trying to tell. Very short chapters, which contain minute amounts of words, really anywhere from between 10 to a few hundred, can be used to create high-impact, high-stakes chapters that catch the reader off guard and deliver something critical or emotionally impactful to the story. In All the Lights We Cannot See, Anthony Doerr uses these to great effect to create tension, highlight single conversations, and to move the story along at a rapid pace. We are introduced to key elements and themes succinctly and quickly, which really builds our investment and allows the writer to move on immediately. This is great for thrillers and mysteries, as it encourages the reader to move on to the next chapter, to keep reading and find out what happens next. And these are usually balanced with some longer chapters, as the fast-paced nature of using super short chapters constantly can leave the reader mentally exhausted. So just be careful about overusing these. Short chapters can range from a few hundred words to 1,000 or so. These have a similar impact as very short chapters, as they create a sense of urgency, but also allow the writer to develop their stories more by including longer sections of description or dialogue. This will be the typical length for dramatic, impactful chapters, where time is sensitive in the story, as well as in framing devices, prologues and epilogues, where you are attempting to move the story along or hook the reader. Yann Martel uses lots of short stories in Life of Pi to really draw us in to the story quickly, and then lengthens them as the urgency of the situation ebbs away and the story becomes a deeper exploration of philosophy and life. Medium chapters are your typical chapter length of a few thousand words, usually between 2,000 to 6,000, but it depends on the author. Try to think of their length as the sort where during your reading time you read one chapter and feel content to stop by the end. They usually encompass an entire self-contained event, such as a decision, a piece of conflict, an important event, extended dialogue, or even some movement of characters from one situation or place to another. This is where most people naturally fall into when they start to write, as it allows you to enter the chapter in one state and then leave with a new situation or condition established. Long chapters are common in more descriptive books, especially in fantasy and sci-fi, which often require more description due to world-building requirements and introducing the reader to new concepts. They'll usually be between 5,000 to 9,000 words and contain multiple situations, conversations, and events. Long chapters can be off-putting to some readers, but the same is true for any chapter style. The important thing with long chapters is they need to justify their length. This means they usually need to contain almost a short story within themselves, with a climax or a cliffhanger at the end, which cannot be cut up or segmented. Otherwise, the effort required by the reader will leave them slightly unsatisfied. Very long chapters are rare, but possible. These consist of 10,000 or more words and are akin to an entire short story by themselves, with a start, middle, and end. Usually these are used to create foundations of the setting in things such as Lord of the Rings, or because the story has reached a climax where many things are coming together and must be dealt with at once. Some writers, such as Brandon Sanderson and Robert Jordan in A Memory of Light, have even used very long chapters to fatigue the readers, to make them tired, so that they can understand the exhaustion of the characters within the story. This is a much more interactive form of writing and can be really exciting if done well, but just keep in mind that it's not for everybody. Ultimately, the length of the chapter that you choose depends very much on the style and the kind of story that you're trying to tell. It also depends very much on your audience. Long chapters are not great for kids' books, and short chapters might not be great for history buffs. So make sure that you're taking your audience into consideration when you're choosing your chapter style. But the most important thing that I would recommend is to experiment with this. For most writers, especially when they're starting out, and myself included, writing a medium to long chapter is pretty easy. You can over-explain and over-describe and have long, unnecessary pieces of dialogue. So for me, the most beneficial thing that I did was practicing writing short chapters, and really short chapters, because this forced me to be concise and really think about all of the words that I'm involving and whether they really need to be there. It's not a surprise that many famous authors started their careers as short story writers. They honed their craft being concise and clear with short stories, and then slowly increased the chapter length as they learned more about how it was appropriate to do so and what things needed to be included in medium, long, and very long chapters. So really, my advice here is to experiment, but experiment especially with writing very short and short chapters so you can really nail down what you need to include in your story. For me, I'm planning to try and use short and medium length chapters, with a couple of very short chapters chucked in as well. I've found that a lot of the books that I really enjoy tend to have medium length chapters and then throw in a couple of very short chapters to create a sense of urgency or excitement. So this is something that I want to replicate because it's something that I really enjoyed reading. And that's my other piece of advice for you. Have a look at the stories that you enjoy reading. Do you enjoy reading really long chapters? Do you enjoy books that have sharp, fast, engaging, and concise chapters? Or very short chapters, or very long chapters? Take a look at what you enjoy reading and try and emulate that. That way you're motivated and you'll enjoy your own writing. So that's all we have time for today. Thank you very much for joining me on Writing from Scratch. I hope this has been useful for you, and good luck trying to decide on the chapter length for your book. Remember to experiment, remember to mix in a few different chapter lengths and find which one works best for you. And unlike me, don't get too concerned about how many words are in your chapter. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day, and your audience will tell you what they like by the time your book is published. So other than that, please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing the video with your friends, and I look forward to seeing you all next week. Thank you very much.